I'm Vinny Politan. Thank you so much for joining us here on Closing Arguments. And here at Court TV, another day, another new trial. Now, this trial, I know, moving very quickly. It's a relatively simple case. It's out of West Virginia. Involves a couple of neighbors. You've got Chester, also known as Rob Lilly, gets into some sort of disagreement, fight, altercation with his neighbor, Travis Peters. Travis Peters ends up dead, and now Rob Lilly is on trial for his murder. I mean, it's relatively simple, but it may not be that easy to figure out exactly what happened and whether or not Rob Lilly committed murder or killed in self-defense. Let me show you a video here. Here's Rob Lilly on his porch. Look at him as he's leaving his porch. This is just before he goes across the street. I want you to focus in on his hands. He's accused of stabbing his neighbor. Do you see a knife in his hands? Because I don't. Neither does Detective Kyle Barnett.
What do you see Mr. Lilly doing in this reflected image in Defendant's Exhibit number 4?
He is continuing to still have his hand out in the direction of the victim's residence.
Any weapon in that hand?
Does not appear to be.
Okay. And do you believe, based upon the position of the truck in this image, that Mr. Lilly is still on his property at 2900?
It appears to be.
Thank you. And over here to the left side again, I know this is kind of tough, but can you see, I guess, what would be his left hand?
Yes, sir.
And how would you describe his left hand in this image? Is he holding anything in his left hand?
Does not appear to be.
Okay, so no weapon in his hands as he's leaving his porch and his home, going across the street to Travis Peters' home. Now, in less than a minute, though, he returns to his porch, and it's a much different scene. Let's take a look. As he runs back onto his porch, it is much clearer that at this time, he does, in fact, have a knife in his hand. So the question is, where did the knife come from? When did he get the knife? Did he have the knife in his pocket? Is this murder? Is this self-defense? So you've got the video of the before and after, but what you also had today inside the courtroom was the testimony of the defendant himself. Take a listen.
Did you hear anything once you went out there?
Yes.
What did you hear?
I heard somebody yelling.
Okay. Did you make out who it was?
No, I did not.
Okay. Where did it sound like it was coming from?
Across the street.
Okay. Did you hear anything else after that?
Some more yelling. It seemed to be getting closer to my house.
Okay. And did you look around and see who it was at that point?
Yes. What
What did you see?
I seen Mr. Peters coming across the street.
Okay. And was he saying anything to you at that point?
He was saying some things I couldn't understand what he was saying, but he did end up calling me a fat ass.
Okay. What were you trying to do throughout your encounter with Travis Peters that morning?
I was trying to defend myself.
Okay. And again, just so the jury understands, how were you trying to defend yourself?
I was trying to keep him from stabbing me.
Okay. And how did you go about keeping him from stabbing you?
I had his hand, and we were slinging each other around the street.
Did you have any malicious intent in your heart as you walked off your porch, down through your driveway, into the street to do any sort of harm, including kill Travis Peters?
No, I did not.
You want to know if one's loyal to you? Ask him and see if he would do the ultimate sin. If he says no, he ain't worth it. I told you, you and me, I ain't gonna let nobody touch you. I ain't gonna let nobody hurt you. Did I let somebody hurt you?
No.
That makes me a mere more word, right?
Yeah.
If they can't do that, They don't need to be in your life.
Now, does that refresh your recollection into the conversation you had with your fiance?
I do not recall that, no.
Okay. You recall indicating, asking if he would commit the ultimate sin?
I do not recall, no.
You agree that that's a conversation between yourself and your fiance?
I do believe, yes.
And you indicate that you protect, well, in so many words, that you protected her, you wouldn't allow somebody to harm her,
That is correct.
and that you're a man of your word.
Into not letting somebody harm.
Okay. And to ask if he would commit the ultimate sin.
No.
Is that because you committed the ultimate sin?
No.
But that's what you said.
Yes.
I guess the neck, clavicle area, in a downward motion, correct?
That I'm not sure.
You don't recall that?
I don't recall that.
You would agree that you did that?
I would agree that, no, I would not agree that I did that
Well, then how did it happen?
during the scuffle.
Right. Well, he didn't stab himself, right? Why did you not just contact, if you felt that you had been attacked, why did you not contact 911 that day and tell them, I've just been attacked?
I was afraid for my safety. I still wasn't safe. The man was going to come at me. He was coming at me with a gun. He was going to come at me with a gun. I was afraid to be shot at. I thought he was going to follow me.
If I was afraid someone was going to come at me with a gun, I think I would call 911. It rhymes, it makes sense. Didn't make sense to this defendant, but this is his story, and he's got the video. No knife, then he's got a knife afterwards. Let's bring in our think tank tonight, figure out what's going on here. Joining us in Atlanta, Georgia, criminal defense attorney Eklund Mercy. In Los Angeles, California, former federal prosecutor Nima Rahmani. And in Phoenix, Arizona, the attorney who represented Jodi Arias, also the author of the book series, you got to get it, Trapped with Miss Arias. Kirk Nurmi is with us. All right, Eklund, I saw you reacting, but I couldn't read what you were thinking.
Oh, that was painful to watch, friend. That was it was gut-wrenching because we tell clients all the time not to testify on your behalf. I know what television makes you think it looks like, but it actually looks like the dumpster file that we just saw right there. This man, if he had any chance of a defense, it was like obliterated through his testimony because he thought it was going to be easy. He thought that his direct examination, him and his attorney were going back and forth. There was a dialogue, and then on cross-examination, he just dropped the ball and kicked it. This was painful to watch, but I need people to understand this is what happens when you take the stand. It is not eloquent. It is this bad. Like, this is bad. This is bad.
Kirk Nurmi, let me ask you, was there any way for him to try to demonstrate to this jury that this was self-defense without taking the stand?
No, Vinny, ultimately that becomes the problem because when you're doing a self-defense claim, you're admitting that you killed the person. You're not disputing cause of death. You're the one who did it. So ultimately then it becomes almost the burden on the defendant to affirmatively prove that his actions in this case were done in self-defense. So he kind of boxed himself into a corner because no one else can provide evidence of his mindset, and this is why we see the defendant taking the stand in this case. But I agree with Eklund, whether it was preparation or the defendant's arrogance, this certainly did not come out well because he didn't have a single fact to support his assertion of self-defense.
Yeah, and I've noticed, Nima, something else that happens with defendants on the witness stand. They forget a lot of things. They just don't remember. And it usually happens during cross-examination. They don't remember things. But Nima, let me ask you a big picture question. And we all understand and we appreciate that in this country you're presumed innocent, you don't have to testify. But when defendants do testify, don't you think the jury gets a better picture and has an easier road to figuring out the truth?
They do. And when defendants testify, like Lilly did in this case, the entire case comes down to their testimony, especially when it's a self-defense case. And I agree with Eklund, it was a dumpster fire. And with Kirk, it's very hard to present a self-defense case without actually testifying. And we're going to see a few more of these. We know the McMichaels are going to present this in the Ahmaud Arbery case. That's going to trial. Obviously, Kyle Rittenhouse, this is his defense. So I'm glad the viewers got a preview. But this was absolutely terrible. He was decimated on cross-examination, especially when he testified that after he stabbed the victim 7 times, he was worried that the victim, Peters, was going to go get a gun. And then he fled the scene. He went to another city, didn't call 911 till the next day. I mean, it was absolutely brutal. And I agree with my colleagues here, whether it was poor preparation or just someone that was frankly unable to perform. This was one of the worst defendant testimonies that I've ever seen. And if he had any chance, based on that video, not having the knife in his hand when he left his porch, he lost it completely. I think the jury is going to convict here.
All right, Eklund, so what do we do with this video? No knife, and then he's got the knife. And his story is that it was Travis's knife, and he ended up getting his hands on it in the scuffle. So how do we explain the before and after of that video of him on the porch, leaving without a knife and then returning with a knife? Because it is consistent with his version of what happened.
It is consistent. However, the issue is that it's poor preparation. All the questions that they're getting on cross-examination should have been prepped for. We know why we're here. He is not prepped. He can't answer those questions. So it's a setup. And then on direct examination, when his own attorney was asking him questions, the questions were so open and vague. There's an opening of the door, but they bust that door wide open. Now, the prosecution has, from the moment he started grade school until now, to see what type of person he is. This was really like a setup for failure. If I was defense, I'm talking to the prosecution and seeing what type of deal can we make. So before it goes to jury, I'm trying to plead this thing out, because this was pretty bad. This was pretty terrible.
Kirk, do you have an explanation for the knife that isn't there when he leaves his home, but is there when he returns?
Well, there's potential explanations like you raised in the opening. Maybe it was in his pocket. Maybe it was somewhere in his truck. Maybe it just was. Maybe it was in his other hand. It wasn't visible during the video. There could be a whole bunch of different issues. And I think the one thing that this knife does for him, or the lack of his presence in his hand to begin with, might be that it might get the jury to consider different degrees of murder. You know, we have second degree, we have manslaughter, and that premeditation concept isn't completely defined. So it could help him in that regard, but probably in little else.
Nima, do you have an explanation for the knife?
I think the better question is, what was Lilly's explanation for what he did with the knife afterwards? He didn't remember what he did with his knife or his clothes. I mean, that was just terrible for him. Could have been in his pocket, even if the victim had it. I mean, the way it went down, he had no defensive wounds. It's going to be very difficult. I agree with Eklund. I try to plead this out. West Virginia has actually a mercy law that the jury can return a 15-year minimum. Maybe you ask for that if you're the defense, because really that's the best it's going to get here.
Well, does anyone here think this was premeditated, that as he's leaving the porch, he's like, I'm heading over there, I am going to kill my neighbor? Or do you think it's a fight that got out of control? What do we think really happened here?
You know what got me when he said, what was he saying? And he said, fat ass. Like, that was, after being prepped for I don't know how many weeks for this trial, when asked what did the alleged victim say to you, and he's like, he called me a fat ass. That was enough to cause this fight that led to somebody dying. When I heard that, I just knew that there was no chance, and I don't see it going well for him.
All
There's
right.
no way. Yeah.
Tomorrow's the day. Our coverage continues here on your front row seat to justice. Could have a very quick verdict. I mean, the faster the trial, the faster the verdict, generally speaking, unless, this jury can't agree. But my guess is tune in first thing in the morning so you can see what happens in this one.